Every day, billions of people type questions into a search bar. They search for answers. They search for news. They search for directions. They search for products, videos, jobs, and almost anything else they can imagine. And most of the time, they don't even think about what's happening behind that simple search box. But here's the question. How did Google become the place where the world goes to find information? Because Google wasn't the first search engine. It wasn't even the first company to organize the internet. So how did two young Stanford students create a project that eventually became one of the most powerful companies in human history? And what was the secret behind its success? The story begins in the late 1990s, when the internet was still young, chaotic, and completely different from the world we know today. And the most surprising part? The original idea behind Google wasn't simply to build a better search engine. It was to completely change the way people found information. To understand Google's story, we have to go back to a time before Google existed. Imagine using the internet in the 1990s. The web was growing rapidly, but finding information wasn't easy. There were search engines and online directories, but the results weren't always useful. You might search for something important and receive pages of irrelevant websites. The problem was simple. There were already millions of web pages, and that number was growing every day. The internet was becoming an enormous library, but nobody had created a truly effective system for organizing it. It was like walking into a library with millions of books, but without a catalog. You knew the information was somewhere inside. You just didn't know where to look. This was the problem that two Stanford University students would eventually try to solve. In the late 1990s, two young Stanford students became fascinated by the structure of the growing internet. Their names were Larry Page and Sergey Brin. They weren't trying to build a global technology empire. They were researchers, and they had a simple but powerful question. What if the importance of a web page could be determined by the other websites that link to it? Think about it like an academic research paper. If hundreds of respected researchers cite a particular paper, you might assume that the paper is important. Larry Page wondered if the same idea could work for the internet. What if links between websites could act like votes? The more important websites that linked to a page, the more important that page might be. This idea became the foundation of a revolutionary system, and it would eventually help create Google. The early project wasn't originally called Google. It was called BackRub. The name came from the idea of analyzing the backlinks pointing toward websites. The project used Stanford's computers to analyze the relationships between websites. This was a completely different approach from simply looking at the words on a web page. Instead of asking only, "What does this website say?" the system also asked, "Who is linking to this website?" And that question could dramatically change search results. The internet was no longer just a collection of individual pages. It was becoming a giant network of connections, and Larry Page and Sergey Brin were trying to understand that network. If you're enjoying this journey into the hidden history of Google, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because the story is about to get even more interesting. The project that started inside a Stanford research environment was about to become something much bigger than its creators initially imagined. The technology behind the project eventually became known as PageRank. The basic concept was surprisingly simple. A link from one website to another could be treated as a kind of recommendation, but not all recommendations were equal. A link from an important and trusted website could carry more weight than a link from an unknown website. This allowed the system to estimate which pages were more important. The result was something different from traditional search engines. Instead of simply matching keywords, Google could attempt to understand the importance and authority of web pages, and that made the search results dramatically more useful. For users, the difference could be enormous. Instead of searching through endless pages of information, they could often find what they wanted much faster. The internet suddenly felt smaller, more organized, and easier to navigate. Eventually, the project needed a new identity. The name Google was inspired by the mathematical term Google, which represents the number 1 followed by 100 zeros. The idea was fitting. The founders wanted to organize an enormous amount of information, and the name reflected the massive scale of the information they hoped to handle. At the time, nobody could have predicted how powerful that name would eventually become. Today, Google is so deeply connected with searching the internet that the word itself has become part of everyday language. People don't always say, search the internet. They simply say, Google it. And that tells you just how completely the company changed human behavior. One of Google's most important advantages was something that seems almost too simple today. Its homepage was clean, very clean. While many early internet portals tried to fill their pages with news, advertisements, links, and information, Google presented users with something incredibly simple: a logo, a search box, and a button. That's it. The design was focused on one thing: finding information. This simplicity became part of Google's identity. Users didn't need to understand how the search engine worked. They simply typed a question and waited for the answer. Behind that simple white page, however, an enormous amount of technology was working. Google was constantly crawling the web, indexing pages, analyzing links, and trying to determine which results were most relevant. The user saw simplicity. Behind the scenes was extraordinary complexity. As Google's search results became more popular, something unexpected happened. More and more people started using it. The project was no longer just a research experiment. It was becoming a real business. The company began attracting investment. Its infrastructure expanded, and Google's search engine started handling more and more of the world's internet searches. But there was still one major question: how would Google make money? The answer would eventually transform the company forever, and it would introduce a business model that would change the entire digital economy. Google was becoming incredibly popular. More people were searching, more websites were being indexed, and the company was growing rapidly. But popularity alone doesn't pay the bills. Google needed an effective way to make money without destroying the simple experience that made people love the search engine. The answer came through advertising, but Google approached advertising differently. Instead of filling the homepage with flashing banners and distracting advertisements, the company focused on showing relevant ads alongside search results. If someone searched for a specific product or service, advertisers could appear when that information was most relevant. This created something extremely powerful. Users got useful search results. Businesses reached potential customers, and Google earned money. The more people searched, the more valuable the system became. And the more valuable the system became, the more businesses wanted to participate. Google had discovered a business model that could scale with the growth of the internet itself. Google's search engine was only the beginning. As the company became more successful, it started expanding into new areas of technology. The goal was no longer simply to organize web pages. Google wanted to become a gateway to the entire digital world. The company developed services that would eventually become part of everyday life: email, online maps, video, cloud storage, mobile operating systems, web browsers, and much more. Each new product brought Google deeper into people's daily routines. For many users, Google wasn't just a search engine anymore. It was becoming an entire digital ecosystem. One of the most important moments in Google's history came in 2006. Google acquired a relatively young video sharing platform called YouTube. At the time, YouTube was already becoming extremely popular. People were uploading videos, watching entertainment, sharing personal moments, and discovering content from around the world. The acquisition turned out to be incredibly significant, because YouTube would eventually become one of the largest video platforms on Earth. Today, millions of creators use YouTube to build audiences, share information, and make a living. And every time someone watches a video on the platform, they are experiencing a part of Google's massive digital ecosystem. If you're enjoying this documentary about the hidden history of Google, like the video and subscribe to the channel, because Google wasn't finished. The company was about to enter one of the biggest technology battles in history. The battle for control of the smartphone. The arrival of the smartphone changed everything. People were no longer accessing the internet only from desktop computers. The internet was moving into people's pockets, and Google recognized the enormous potential. The company became deeply involved in the development of Android, a mobile operating system that would eventually power billions of devices around the world. This was a major strategic move. Google's search engine could now be placed directly inside the devices people carried everywhere. Your phone could become your search engine, your map, your email, your camera, your entertainment system, and your connection to the digital world. Google was no longer waiting for people to visit the internet. It was becoming part of the device they carried with them every day. Another service quietly transformed everyday life: Google Maps. Before digital maps became common, finding an unfamiliar location often meant using printed maps or asking for directions. But Google Maps changed that experience. Suddenly you could search for almost any location, find businesses, plan routes, explore cities, and eventually look at streets from around the world. The world itself became searchable. You could be sitting in your living room in the United States and explore a street thousands of miles away. The physical world was becoming part of the digital world, and Google was helping connect the two. But behind Google's services was something even more important: data. Every search tells Google something about what people are interested in. Every map request reveals what locations people are looking for. Every video watched on YouTube provides information about what audiences enjoy. This data helps Google's systems become more useful, but it also raises an important question.
If one company helps billions of people find information every day,
how much does that company actually know about the world? And how much does it know about the people using its services? This question would become increasingly important as Google grew. Think about what happens when millions of people search for something at the same time: a new disease, a major election, a natural disaster, a breaking news story, a new technology, a popular product. Google can see what people around the world are trying to understand. In some ways, search data creates a unique picture of global curiosity. It reveals what people are worried about, what they want to learn, what they want to buy, and what they want to know. That gives Google something incredibly valuable, not just information about websites, but insight into human behavior. But Google's incredible convenience comes with difficult questions. How much personal information should technology companies collect? How should that data be protected? Should companies be able to track people's online activity? And how much influence should one company have over the information people see? These questions have become central to the modern technology debate. Because Google doesn't simply help people find information, its algorithms decide which information appears first. And what appears first can influence what people believe. Buy, watch, and discuss. That gives search engines enormous power. And with enormous power comes enormous responsibility. Eventually, Google became so deeply integrated into modern life that many people stopped thinking of it as a separate technology. Need directions? Google Maps. Want to watch a video? YouTube. Need an email? Gmail. Want to find an answer? Google Search. Want to use an Android phone? Google services may already be built into it. The company had quietly become part of the infrastructure of everyday life. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that this transformation happened gradually. There wasn't one single day when Google took over the internet. Instead, it happened one search, one video, one map, and one smartphone at a time. By the late 2000s, Google had become one of the biggest names on the internet. But the company understood something important. If people accessed the internet through someone else's browser, Google didn't have complete control over the experience. So Google created its own. In 2008, Google Chrome was launched. At first, it was entering a market already dominated by established competitors. But Chrome had a major advantage. It was designed around speed, simplicity, and modern web applications, and over time, more and more people began switching to it. The browser became another important doorway into Google's ecosystem. Search, YouTube, Gmail, Maps, and countless other services could all work together seamlessly. Google wasn't simply building individual products. It was building an interconnected digital world. The next major transformation was happening behind the scenes. The internet was becoming more than a place to visit websites. It was becoming a place where people could store files, communicate, work, and create without relying entirely on a single computer. Google became a major player in this shift. Services like Google Drive and Google Docs allowed people to create and store information online, instead of saving everything on one computer. Your files could exist in the cloud. You could work from home, then open the same document at school or in an office. The physical location of your computer became less important. The internet itself was becoming the computer, and Google was helping push that transformation forward. But Google's growth didn't happen in isolation. The company faced powerful competitors: Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Meta, and many other technology companies were fighting for influence. over the future of the internet. Each company controlled a different piece of the digital world. Microsoft had Windows. Apple had the iPhone. Amazon dominated online shopping and cloud infrastructure. Meta controlled massive social media platforms. Google had search, advertising, YouTube, Android, and a growing collection of digital services. The competition wasn't simply about making better products. It was about controlling the platforms that people would use every day. And this competition would become even more intense as a new technology began to emerge: artificial intelligence. If you're enjoying this journey through Google's incredible history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the next chapter could be the biggest transformation Google has ever faced. The age of artificial intelligence had arrived. Long before AI became a mainstream topic, Google was already investing heavily in artificial intelligence. The company developed advanced systems capable of understanding language, recognizing images, analyzing data, and learning from enormous amounts of information. One of Google's most famous AI achievements came from DeepMind. The company became known for developing powerful artificial intelligence systems capable of solving incredibly complex problems. One of the most famous examples was AlphaGo. The system defeated one of the world's strongest professional Go players. This was a remarkable moment, because Go is an incredibly complex game. There are more possible moves than humans can realistically calculate. The victory demonstrated something important. AI wasn't simply following a fixed set of instructions. It could analyze enormous possibilities and develop strategies in ways that surprised even experts. The technology world was entering a new era. As artificial intelligence became more advanced, another challenge emerged. Could machines understand human language? Google invested heavily in technologies designed to understand how people communicate. Search engines were becoming smarter. Instead of matching only keywords, they were increasingly trying to understand meaning and context. If someone typed a complicated question into Google, the system could attempt to understand what the person actually wanted. This was a major evolution. The search engine was slowly becoming less like a library catalog and more like an intelligent assistant. But then something unexpected happened. A new generation of AI systems began attracting global attention, and Google suddenly found itself facing a new kind of competition. For decades, Google had been the dominant way people searched for information online. But the rise of generative AI changed the conversation. Instead of typing a question into a search box and receiving a list of links, people could ask an AI system a question and receive a direct response. The experience felt completely different. The internet was entering a new phase, and Google had to adapt. The company began integrating more AI into its products and search experience. The goal was clear. The future of finding information might not look like the past, and the company that built the world's most powerful search engine had to decide what search would become next. Today, Google stands at another turning point. The company that began with 2 students and a simple idea now operates across search, advertising, smartphones, video, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and much more. But the future is uncertain. AI could completely transform how people find information. People may search less through traditional search boxes. They may ask AI assistants instead. They may expect direct answers instead of lists of websites. And Google will have to evolve again. The same company that once changed the internet by making information easier to find must now figure out how to organize information in the age of artificial intelligence. The history of Google is ultimately a story about information. 2 students looked at the chaotic early internet and asked a simple question: what if there was a better way to find what you're looking for? That question created an algorithm. The algorithm created a search engine. The search engine created a company. And that company eventually became part of the daily lives of billions of people. From a simple search box, Google expanded into maps, email, video, smartphones, browsers, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. But perhaps the most fascinating part of Google's story isn't where it started, it's where it might go next. Because the internet is changing again, and this time, artificial intelligence could completely redefine the meaning of search. So the next time you open Google and type a question, take a moment to think about what you're actually doing. You're not simply searching the internet. You're using the result of decades of engineering, research, algorithms, data, and technological innovation. A system that began as a small university research project eventually became one of Google's greatest challenge may not come from another traditional search engine. It may come from artificial intelligence. For decades, the internet followed a simple pattern. You had a question. You typed it into a search box, and the search engine gave you a list of websites. But AI is changing that experience. Now people can ask complex questions in natural language. They can request explanations. They can ask for ideas. They can summarize information. And they can have conversations with machines. The search box is slowly becoming something more intelligent. And this creates one of the biggest questions in Google's history. What happens when people no longer need to search the way they used to? Google has spent decades organizing the world's information. Now it must help people navigate a world where machines can understand and generate information themselves. The future of Google may not be about 10 blue links. It may be about AI-powered answers. It may be about voice. It may be about smart glasses. It may be about wearable technology. It may even be about artificial intelligence that understands what you need before you ask. Imagine waking up in the morning. Your AI assistant already knows your schedule. It understands the traffic. It knows the weather. It can help organize your work. It can answer your questions. And it can connect you with almost any information on Earth. In that world, the traditional search engine could become almost invisible. You may not even realize you're using it. And Google is racing to make sure it remains at the center of that future. But the larger Google becomes, the more important its responsibilities become. A company that helps billions of people access information has enormous influence. Its algorithms can affect what people see. Its platforms can influence businesses. Its advertising systems can shape markets. And its technology can influence how people communicate with one another. The power comes with difficult questions. How should information be ranked? How should misinformation be handled? How should personal data be protected? And how much influence should a technology company have over the information people consume? These questions don't have simple answers, and they will become even more important as artificial intelligence becomes more powerful. It's difficult to imagine that the story began with 2 students at Stanford. There was no massive global corporation, no giant network of data centers, no billions of users, no smartphones powered by Google services, just an idea. An idea that the internet could be organized better. That idea became BackRub. BackRub became Google. And Google became one of the most influential technology companies in modern history. The company didn't invent the internet. It didn't invent the computer. It didn't invent online advertising. But it changed how humanity interacts with information. And that may be an even bigger achievement. So what was Google's real secret? Was it the search algorithm? Was it advertising? Was it data? Was it artificial intelligence? The answer may be all of these. But there was something even more important. Google understood one simple truth. People don't want the internet. They want answers. They want information. They want entertainment. They want directions. They want solutions. They want to find something quickly. Google built its empire around helping people do exactly that. And once the company became the fastest path between a question and an answer, it became incredibly difficult to replace. Today, billions of people live in a world that Google helped shape. We search for information instantly. We navigate cities using digital maps. We watch videos from creators around the world. We communicate through online services. We store files in the cloud. We use smartphones connected to enormous digital ecosystems. And increasingly, we interact with artificial intelligence. Much of this feels normal now. But it wasn't always normal. Someone had to imagine this world before it existed. And Google was one of the companies that helped turn that imagination into reality. The story of Google is not finished. In fact, its most important chapter may still be ahead. The company began by organizing websites. Then it organized information. Then it became part of smartphones, maps, videos, cloud services, and countless other technologies. Now it is entering the age of artificial intelligence, and the question is no longer, can Google find information? The question is, what will Google become when machines can understand information themselves? Will Google remain the world's primary gateway to knowledge? Will AI completely change how we search? Or will another technology eventually replace the system that Google built? Nobody knows for certain. But one thing is clear. The company that began with a simple search box has already changed the world. And whatever happens next, the future of Google will likely influence the future of the internet itself. So the next time you open Google and type a question, remember this. Behind that simple search box is a story that began more than 2 decades ago. With 2 students, a university research project, and an idea to organize the world's information. From those humble beginnings came one of the most powerful technology companies in history, but now a new revolution is beginning. Artificial intelligence is changing the way humans interact with information, and Google is once again standing at the center of that transformation. If you enjoyed this journey through the secret history of Google, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating technology documentaries, because the next time you search for an answer, you might be witnessing the future of information without even realizing it. This is the story of Google, and the story is far from over.